Please proceed to our review of the first section of Part 4. We are going to start by taking a look at the air conditioner coils. The coils can tell a lot about the situation. Hopefully you were able to get some history of the coils from the interview. This is helpful but not necessary. First, turn off the air to avoid suction on the panel and insulation. Then check the coils on the air conditioner unit by taking off the access panel. After removing the screws, make sure to run your finger between the housing and the insulation to avoid tearing the insulation attached to the panel, because it will most likely stick to the housing. Make note if it was necessary to document whether the panel has been recently removed. This would be useful in ruling out any tampering or recent repairs. There have been cases of people removing the soot to avoid detection. Are the coils covered with black soot? Are there any signs at all? Also, look at the copper lines coming into the unit. Are they covered with soot? This black soot is a combination of copper oxide and copper sulfide, according to Unified Engineers Report File 4050. If the air handler is in the garage, it can tell you whether tainted Chinese drywall is in the property and in the garage. This photo is a very clear example. Notice how the liquid line is clean, but the coils are not. This property was unoccupied, so there was minimal transfer of air from the inside of the house to the garage. In other similar cases where the property is occupied, the liquid line will look like aged copper and may not have residue. Heavy presence of tainted Chinese drywall usually means the coils have to be replaced about every 12 to 16 months. Typically, the coils in properly maintained units have a life of 10 plus years. If the system was well maintained, then it will be easier to read the signs. Poorly maintained coils will have a moderate to heavy amount of oxidation that will interfere with the signs to look for, especially in partially tainted properties. A clogged filter or dirty coil slow down airflow, which increase the amount of moisture that will build up on the coils. The rust and oxidation might actually interfere with the generation of soot or the ability of the gases to react with the coils. Occasionally you will run into a situation where the coils have been coated with some sort of salt or corrosion-inhibiting material which may prevent the corrosion effects. You can tell if it has been coated because the entire assembly has been coated, including the galvanized metal body of the coil. In some cases, the corrosion has penetrated the coating in various spots or patches. In your workbook is a collection of pictures of coated coils which you will need to study. These will help you read the various coil conditions and levels of corrosion and/or oxidation you will run into. It is important to look for any suspect signs on the coils. Some properties will not have any clear signs, but even if there is half a room with tainted Chinese drywall, it will show up on a typical set of coils. It is important to note the age of the coil. Typically in real estate transactions, the information is unknown. In this case, look for signs of age such as oxidation and dirt buildup. Ideally, there will be minor signs of oxidation or rust to indicate that it is the original coil, but it will not have any signs of copper oxide or sulfur soot. This will appear differently in partially tainted properties, so it is important to study the coil picture reference guide to draw a comparison. In partially tainted properties, the soot does not come off easily and has a different color tone. It also could be inconstant where the soot is in patches. So just because you see some shiny copper on some of the coils, that doesn't automatically mean the property is clean. In most cases, what you see on the coils sets the tone for the rest of the inspection. If there's heavy soot covering the complete coil, there is most likely tainted Chinese drywall throughout the home. It is also important to note any differences in coils in properties that have more than one unit. Sometimes one unit will show heavy signs and the other will show minor signs. This tells you that it is more prevalent in the area of the property that the more heavily sooted unit feeds. The ambient air will mix, so there could be no tainted drywall in that particular area of the property, and it is picking it up from the tainted area. The next best indicator for the presence of tainted Chinese drywall is refrigerators. Whenever possible, have the property owner pull the refrigerator out or have him assist you. Do not joke with the property owner about the debris in back of the refrigerator. This appliance is seldom pulled out, and even the most fastidious property owner rarely goes back there, but they will be embarrassed if there is debris. Look at the water line coming out of the wall. If there is a copper connector or line, chances are it will be exposed and covered with soot if there is tainted Chinese drywall present. If so, make note and take a photograph. If there is soot, you can stop there. If not, then you need to open the back panel of the refrigerator and look inside. Open up the panel on the back of the refrigerator, look at the copper lines and components inside. Sometimes where they are soldered, the flux will protect the line from soot buildup. If the compressor is painted black, take that into consideration while doing the inspection. In some foreclosure cases, the refrigerator was removed, but there was a soot outline on the floor below the copper components. Take note of the photos illustrating this. Do the finger test if it appears clean to check for any residue. If the refrigerator shows no signs of being tampered with or has been recently replaced, no residue or darkening of copper indicates a clean property. It is important to consider the size of the property and air conditioning zones. In smaller properties with one zone, it will be more conclusive to determine a property free of tainted Chinese drywall with no signs on the refrigerator in lieu of a large home with multiple zones. Take note of the photo illustrating a property with tainted Chinese drywall only in one room and the effects on the refrigerator. Due to the warm, moist environment of the refrigerator compressor area and the constant airflow, it will exacerbate the off-gassing of the drywall in the area around the refrigerator, so more soot will form here than on ground wires or other components in the property. It will also pick up on any of the gases in the ambient air due to the fan and motor being low to the floor, and since corrosive gases are heavier than air. Refrigerator components are not as sensitive to corrosive effects as air conditioners because of the thicker lines and components. In cases of tainted Chinese drywall, repairs might be needed in 4 to 5 years. In the kitchen, look for corrosive spotting on the faucets. Check under the sink and look for any copper lines that might be exposed, and check for soot. Rub your fingers or hand along the pipes to check for residue. The level of soot on water lines vary and may not always be present in tainted homes. This may be due to being somewhat encapsulated within the cabinet. Inconsistencies may be due to the amount of use or times the cabinet is opened. After inspecting the air conditioning coil or coils and refrigerator or refrigerators, it can be reasonably concluded, in most cases, whether there is any tainted Chinese drywall present at any level within the property. The heavier the soot, the more prevalent the tainted drywall is throughout the property. Non-typical cases are those with new-looking coils, coated coils, no refrigerator, or new refrigerator. It will take a much more extensive inspection to verify the property is clean in these cases.